The year was 2147, and Earth had transformed into a world of shimmering skyscrapers, floating vehicles, and neon lights that painted the night sky brighter than the stars themselves. In this futuristic era, memories were no longer confined to the fragile recesses of the human mind. They could be captured, stored, and replayed at will through advanced technology known as memory vaults. These neural implants allowed people to relive their happiest moments or bury their most painful ones. Dr. Evelyn Carter sat alone in her sleek, high-tech apartment on the 50th floor of one of New Chicago's towering buildings. At 72 years old, she was a respected scientist who had dedicated her life to studying memory preservation. Her walls were lined with holographic displays showing scenes from history, ancient ruins, early space exploration, and even personal photographs from her youth. Yet, despite all her achievements, there was a void in her heart that neither science nor technology could fill. Evelyn's fingers hovered over a small device on her desk. It was an older model of a memory vault, one she hadn't touched in decades. She hesitated for a moment before pressing a button, activating the playback feature. Instantly, the room dimmed, and a hologram materialized before her eyes. It was her younger self, standing beside a boy with tousled brown hair and warm hazel eyes. Their laughter echoed softly around the room. "Liam," Evelyn whispered, her voice trembling. It had been 50 years since she last saw Liam Harper, her high school sweetheart. Back then, they were inseparable, dreaming of a future together under the same starry skies, where they shared countless nights talking about everything and nothing. But fate had other plans. When Earth faced a global crisis, a series of devastating natural disasters caused by climate change, governments scrambled to evacuate millions of people to distant colonies scattered across the galaxy. Families were torn apart, and Evelyn and Liam were among them. Their final meeting played out like a scene from a tragic movie. Standing on the crowded platform of a spaceport, tears streaming down their faces, they promised to find each other again someday. But as the years passed, communication became impossible. Colonies were isolated, and records were lost or corrupted. Eventually, Evelyn stopped looking for him altogether, burying her grief deep inside her work. Now, staring at the holographic image of Liam, Evelyn felt something stir within her, a mix of longing, regret, and curiosity. Why had she kept this particular memory locked away? Was it because it hurt too much to remember? Or was it because she secretly hoped, somewhere deep down, that they might meet again? Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft chime from her computer. A notification popped up on the screen. Project Memento complete. Evelyn sighed and turned back to her workstation. For the past few months, she'd been working on a new project aimed at recovering lost memories from damaged neural implants. Many elderly patients suffered from memory loss due to aging or faulty devices, and Evelyn wanted to help them reclaim pieces of their lives. She opened the program and began analyzing data from various test subjects. As she scrolled through lines of code and neural patterns, something unusual caught her eye. One of the fragments appeared to contain not just random snippets of information, but a coherent sequence, a vivid recollection of someone proposing marriage under a starlit sky. Curious, Evelyn zoomed in on the fragment. To her shock, the memory wasn't from one of her test subjects. It was hers. She recognized the scene immediately. It was the night Liam proposed to her during their senior year of high school. She remembered how nervous he looked, holding a simple silver ring between his fingers. "Evelyn, I know we're young, but I love you more than anything. Will you marry me someday?" he had asked, his voice cracking slightly. Tears welled up in Evelyn's eyes as she replayed the memory over and over. How had this fragment survived intact after so many years? And why had it resurfaced now? Determined to understand, Evelyn ran additional diagnostics on her own memory vault. What she discovered left her stunned. The fragment wasn't just a standalone memory. It was connected to others. Memories she thought she had forgotten forever. There was Liam teaching her how to ride a hoverbike, their first kiss behind the bleachers at school, and the time they stargazed on a hilltop. imagining what life would be like on other planets. Each memory was clearer and more detailed than she remembered. For hours, Evelyn immersed herself in these fragments of her past. By the time she finally shut off the program, dawn was breaking outside her window. Exhausted but unable to sleep, she paced the length of her apartment, her mind racing. The memories had awakened something in her, a desire to find Liam, to see if he was still out there somewhere. But how? 50 years was a long time, and the universe was vast. Even if Liam was alive, finding him would be nearly impossible. Still, Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that she owed it to herself and to the girl she used to be, to try. The next day, Evelyn threw herself into research. Using her access to classified databases, she began searching for any trace of Liam Harbor. She scored immigration records, colonial registries, and even black market archives. Most leads ended in dead ends, but one name kept popping up: Proxima Centauri b, a habitable exoplanet colonized decades ago. Evelyn's pulse quickened as she dug deeper. According to fragmented reports, Liam's family had been part of the initial wave of settlers sent to establish the colony. If he was still alive, that's where he would be. But traveling to Proxima Centauri wasn't easy. It required advanced spacecraft capable of surviving the journey through hyperspace, not to mention the risks involved in entering uncharted territory. Despite the challenges, Evelyn knew what she had to do. She couldn't let fear hold her back, not when she finally had a chance to reconnect with the man she once loved. Gathering her notes and preparing for the journey ahead, Evelyn made a decision that would change her life forever. As she stood on her balcony later that evening, gazing up at the stars, Evelyn whispered to herself, "Liam, if you're out there, I'm coming." Evelyn's journey to Proxima Centauri began with a mix of excitement and trepidation. She had spent weeks preparing for the trip, securing a spacecraft equipped with experimental cryosleep technology that would allow her to endure the long voyage. The ship, named the Odyssey, was sleek and compact, designed for solo missions across vast distances. Its interior was lined with glowing panels and holographic interfaces, giving it an almost otherworldly feel. Before leaving Earth, Evelyn visited the spaceport's medical bay to undergo final checks. The doctor, a kind woman in her 50s, double-checked the settings on Evelyn's cryosleep pod. "You'll be asleep for most of the journey," she explained gently. "When you wake up, you'll be just a few days away from Proxima Centauri." Evelyn nodded, though her stomach churned with nerves. She wasn't used to taking such risks. For decades, she had lived a quiet, predictable life, pouring her energy into her work while avoiding anything that might stir up old emotions. But now, as she stood on the brink of the unknown, she felt a strange sense of liberation. This was her chance, not just to find Liam, but to rediscover herself. The launch was smooth, almost anticlimactic. As the Odyssey ascended through Earth's atmosphere, Evelyn watched the blue-green planet shrink into a distant orb behind her. Then, with a soft hum, the cryosleep sequence activated, and darkness enveloped her. When Evelyn awoke, she found herself floating in zero gravity, disoriented and groggy. A robotic voice greeted her over the intercom. "Welcome back, Dr. Carter. You are approximately 3 days away from Proxima Centauri b. Please conduct routine system checks before proceeding." Rubbing her eyes, Evelyn strapped herself into the cockpit chair and ran diagnostics on the ship's systems. Everything seemed to be functioning properly, but as she reviewed the data, she noticed something unusual: a series of faint signals emanating from an uncharted region near the colony. They weren't distress calls, exactly, but they were irregular enough to raise suspicion. Curious, Evelyn decided to investigate. Adjusting the ship's course slightly, she set a trajectory toward the source of the signals. Along the way, she encountered several challenges that tested both her skills and her resolve. First, there was a malfunction in the ship's navigation system. Without warning, the autopilot shut down, forcing Evelyn to manually steer the Odyssey through a dense asteroid field. Her heart pounded as chunks of rock hurtled past the windows, narrowly missing the ship. Sweat dripped down her forehead as she gripped the controls tightly, guiding the vessel through the chaos. When she finally emerged on the other side, she let out a shaky breath, realizing how close she had come to disaster. Next, Evelyn faced an unexpected encounter with an alien species known as the Valens, who roamed the outer edges of human-occupied space. Their ships were massive, organic-looking structures that resembled living organisms more than machines. When one of these ships approached the Odyssey, Evelyn froze, unsure whether to flee or attempt communication. After a tense standoff, the Valens transmitted a message, a string of cryptic symbols accompanied by eerie, melodic tones. Using her knowledge of linguistics, Evelyn managed to decipher part of the message. It warned of a time anomaly near Proxima Centauri, describing it as a dangerous phenomenon that disrupted the flow of time. Though puzzled by the warning, Evelyn couldn't ignore its significance. Could this anomaly have something to do with Liam? Was it possible that he was trapped within it? Determined to press on, Evelyn continued her journey, keeping the Valens' warning in mind. As she drew closer to Proxima Centauri, the signals grew stronger, filling the ship with static-like interference. Each transmission carried fragments of distorted voices and images, flashes of people frozen in moments of joy, sorrow, or confusion. Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that these echoes of the past held clues to what lay ahead. Finally, after months of travel, Proxima Centauri came into view. From orbit, the planet looked breathtakingly beautiful, its surface covered in lush green forests and shimmering lakes. But as Evelyn descended through the atmosphere, she noticed signs of trouble. Several areas of the colony appeared abandoned, with buildings crumbling and vegetation reclaiming the land. It was clear that something had gone wrong here. Landing at the main settlement, Evelyn stepped out of the Odyssey and onto alien soil for the first time. The air was cool and fresh, carrying the scent of unfamiliar plants. She was greeted by a young man in his late 20s, wearing a patched-up jumpsuit and holding a scanner device. His name was Kai, and he introduced himself as a maintenance engineer tasked with keeping the colony running. "Not many visitors these days," Kai said with a wry smile. "What brings you here?" Evelyn hesitated for a moment before answering. "I'm looking for someone. A man named Liam Harper. Do you know him?" Kai frowned, shaking his head. "Sorry, can't say I do. Most of the original settlers passed away years ago, or, well, let's just say things haven't been easy around here." Intrigued, Evelyn pressed further. "What do you mean? What's happened to the colony?" Kai sighed, glancing over his shoulder nervously. "There's something we call the temporal rift. It started about 10 years ago, a weird distortion in time that affects certain parts of the colony. People caught in it relive the same moments over and over again, unable to break free. We've tried everything to stop it, but nothing works." Evelyn's heart raced. Could this rift be connected to the signals she had detected earlier? And could Liam be trapped inside it? She thanked Kai for his help and asked if he could guide her to the rift's location. Though hesitant, he agreed, warning her to stay cautious. As they traveled deeper into the colony, Evelyn saw firsthand the effects of the temporal rift. In one area, she witnessed a woman repeatedly planting seeds in the same patch of dirt, unaware that she had already done so countless times. In another, a group of children played tag endlessly, their laughter echoing eerily through the empty streets. By the time they reached the heart of the rift, Evelyn felt a growing sense of unease. The air crackled with energy, and the ground beneath her feet seemed to ripple like water. Kai stayed behind, unwilling to venture any closer, while Evelyn pressed on alone. Standing at the edge of the distortion zone, she took a deep breath and stepped forward. Instantly, the world around her shifted, pulling her into a surreal dimension where past, present, and future collided. Memories flooded her mind, not just her own, but those of others who had been trapped here. Among them, she sensed a familiar presence. "Liam," she whispered, her voice trembling with hope. Somewhere in this chaotic web of time, she knew he was waiting. The moment Evelyn stepped into the heart of the temporal rift, reality seemed to unravel around her. Colors blurred together, sounds warped and distorted, and time itself felt like a living, breathing entity. She stumbled forward, disoriented, as fragmented memories swirled in every direction. Some hers, others belonging to people she didn't know. Each memory was vivid, almost tangible, pulling at her emotions with an intensity she hadn't felt in decades. At first, Evelyn struggled to make sense of her surroundings. The rift wasn't just a static distortion. It was dynamic, constantly shifting between moments frozen in time. One second, she stood in a bustling marketplace on Proxima Centauri, watching colonists barter goods and laugh with their families. The next, she found herself back on Earth during her teenage years, sitting in the school cafeteria beside Liam. The transitions were seamless yet jarring, leaving her unsure of what was real and what was merely a reflection of someone else's past. Despite the chaos, Evelyn pressed on, driven by the faint but unmistakable pull of Liam's presence. She could feel him nearby, like a thread woven into the fabric of this fractured dimension. Every step she took brought her closer to that elusive connection, though the path ahead remained unclear. As she ventured deeper into the rift, Evelyn encountered glimpses of Liam's life after they had been separated. She saw him aboard the colony ship bound for Proxima Centauri, staring out a window at the endless void of space, his face etched with longing. She witnessed his early days on the planet, helping build the settlement alongside other settlers. And she saw him grow older, his hair turning silver, his hands calloused from years of hard work. But there was something strange about these visions. They all seemed to revolve around one pivotal moment: their final goodbye at the spaceport. No matter where Evelyn looked or how far she traveled within the rift, Liam appeared trapped in that single, heartbreaking scene. He stood on the crowded platform, clutching a small photograph of them together, waiting for her to return. His eyes searched the crowd endlessly, hope flickering in them, even as decades passed. Evelyn's chest tightened with grief and guilt. How long had he waited for her? Had he truly believed she would come back, despite everything? The thought weighed heavily on her, but it also fueled her determination to reach him. Eventually, Evelyn reached the core of the anomaly, a shimmering vortex of light and sound that pulsed with raw energy. Here, the boundaries between time dissolved completely, creating a kaleidoscope of overlapping moments. It was overwhelming, almost unbearable, but Evelyn refused to turn back. She focused on the thread connecting her to Liam, following it until she finally saw him. He was standing in the middle of the vortex, bathed in golden light. His appearance shifted erratically, younger one moment, older the next, but his expression never changed. He was still waiting, still hoping, oblivious to the passage of time. "Liam," Evelyn called out, her voice trembling. "It's me, Evelyn." For a moment, there was no response. Then, slowly, Liam turned toward her. His hazel eyes widened in recognition, but confusion clouded his features. "Evelyn," he whispered, his voice tinged with disbelief. "Is it really you?" Tears streamed down Evelyn's face as she rushed to him, throwing her arms around him. For a brief instant, the world around them stabilized, grounding them in the present. They clung to each other, savoring the warmth of human contact they had both missed for so long. "I'm here," Evelyn said, her voice choked with emotion. "I've been looking for you." Liam pulled back slightly, studying her face as if trying to memorize every detail. "You came back," he murmured, his voice breaking. "After all these years, I knew you would." Evelyn shook her head, tears falling freely now. "I should have come sooner. I'm so sorry, Liam. I let fear keep me away." Liam cupped her cheek gently, his thumb brushing away a tear. "Don't apologize. You're here now. That's all that matters." As they held each other, Evelyn began to notice subtle changes in their surroundings. The chaotic swirl of memories started to fade, replaced by a sense of calm. The vortex's energy softened, its pulsating rhythm aligning with their heartbeats. It was as if the rift recognized their connection, responding to the love that had endured across time and space. Realizing they might have a chance to escape, Evelyn explained what she had learned from Kai about the temporal rift. "We need to stabilize this anomaly," she said urgently. "If we can anchor ourselves in the present, we might be able to break free." Liam nodded, trusting her completely. Together, they focused on grounding themselves in the moment, recalling shared memories and experiences that defined their bond. They relived their first kiss, their late-night conversations under the stars, and the promise they made to find each other again someday. With each recollection, the rift grew weaker. It told on them loosening. But escaping wouldn't be easy. The rift fought back, bombarding them with powerful waves of emotion designed to trap them in its grasp. Evelyn and Liam clung to each other, drawing strength from their unity. They reminded themselves of why they had endured so much, to be together again, no matter the cost. Finally, with one last surge of effort, Evelyn activated the neural implant embedded in her temple, using it to project a signal that resonated with the rift's frequency. The device acted as a stabilizer, creating a bridge between their consciousness and the physical world outside. The vortex shuddered violently, then collapsed inward, dissolving into nothingness. When the light faded, Evelyn and Liam found themselves lying on the ground near the edge of the distortion zone. Above them, the sky was clear, the air crisp and fresh. They were free. Kai ran toward them, relief washing over his face. "You did it," he exclaimed. "The rift, it's gone." Evelyn sat up, still holding Liam's hand tightly. Her body ached, and her mind felt drained, but she couldn't stop smiling. After 50 years apart, she had finally found him again. And this time, she wasn't letting go. The aftermath of the temporal rift's collapse left Proxima Centauri bathed in an eerie silence. The colony, once haunted by echoes of the past and endless loops of fragmented memories, now felt strangely still, as though the planet itself were catching its breath after decades of turmoil. Evelyn and Liam sat side by side on the damp grass near the edge of what had been the distortion zone, their hands clasped tightly together, as if afraid that letting go might send them spiraling back into the chaos they'd just escaped. For a long moment, neither spoke. They simply basked in the reality of being reunited, their eyes locked in a gaze that carried 50 years' worth of unspoken words. Around them, the colonists who had gathered to witness the rift's end began to murmur among themselves, some cheering softly while others stared in awe at the couple who had emerged from the heart of the anomaly. But Evelyn and Liam paid no attention to the crowd. For them, the universe had narrowed down to this single moment, this fragile, precious connection they had fought so hard to reclaim. Finally, Liam broke the silence. "I thought I'd lost you forever," he said, his voice rough with emotion. His fingers traced the lines of Evelyn's palm, as though reassuring himself that she was real. "Every day, I waited for you. Even when I told myself it was impossible, I couldn't stop hoping." Evelyn swallowed the lump in her throat, her vision blurred by tears. "I'm sorry I didn't come sooner," she whispered. "I let fear take over. I convinced myself you were gone, that I'd never see you again. But deep down, I always knew I couldn't give up on us." Liam smiled faintly, brushing a strand of silver-streaked hair away from her face. "You didn't give up," he said firmly. "If you had, we wouldn't be here right now. You saved me, Evelyn. You pulled me out of that prison." His words sent a shiver through her. She remembered all too well the image of him standing on the spaceport platform, endlessly waiting for her return. It was a memory that would haunt her for the rest of her life, a testament to the depth of his love and the pain of their separation. Yet even as guilt gnawed at her, she allowed herself to feel a flicker of hope. They were together now, and they had the chance to build something new. Over the next few days, Evelyn and Liam settled into a rhythm, rediscovering each other piece by piece. They spent hours talking under the alien stars, sharing stories of their lives apart. Liam told her about his early days on Proxima Centauri, the challenges of building a settlement from scratch, the friendships he formed, and the loneliness that lingered despite the community around him. Evelyn recounted her work on memory preservation, her quiet but fulfilling career, and the void she had tried to fill with science and routine. Through these conversations, they realized how much they had changed, and how much they remained the same. Liam was still the kind, steadfast boy she had fallen in love with, though his features bore the marks of time and hardship. Evelyn, too, carried the weight of age, but her curiosity and determination burned as brightly as ever. Together, they found comfort in their shared history and excitement in the unknown future ahead. One evening, as they walked along the outskirts of the colony, Kai approached them. The young engineer had become a frequent companion, eager to learn more about the technology Evelyn had used to stabilize the rift. He also seemed fascinated by their story, often asking questions about Earth and the world before the colonies. "Dr. Carter," Kai began hesitantly, "I've been thinking. Do you think the rift was caused by human emotions? Like maybe it wasn't just random. It was fueled by people's regrets or desires?" Evelyn paused, considering the question. She glanced at Liam, who nodded thoughtfully. "It's possible," she admitted. "Emotions are powerful. If enough people were stuck reliving painful moments, it could have created a feedback loop that destabilized time itself. That's why breaking the cycle required reconnecting, not just with the present, but with each other." Kai looked intrigued. "So, love really can conquer anything, huh?" Liam chuckled softly, squeezing Evelyn's hand. "Maybe not anything, but it sure helped us get through this." As the days turned into weeks, Evelyn and Liam decided to stay on Proxima Centauri for a while. The colony, though struggling, had begun to recover from the effects of the rift. With Evelyn's expertise in neural technology and Liam's practical knowledge of engineering, they offered their skills to help rebuild the settlement. Their presence inspired the colonists, many of whom saw their reunion as a symbol of resilience and hope. But as much as they enjoyed contributing to the community, Evelyn and Liam also carved out time for themselves. They explored the planet's untouched wilderness, marveling at its beauty and strangeness. They climbed hills covered in bioluminescent plants, swam in crystalline lakes, and stargazed beneath skies filled with unfamiliar constellations. Each adventure brought them closer, reminding them of the joy they had once shared as teenagers. One night, as they lay on a blanket near the edge of a glowing forest, Evelyn turned to Liam and asked, "Do you ever wonder what our lives would have been like if we hadn't been separated?" Liam was silent for a moment, staring up at the stars. Then he replied, "Sometimes, but I don't think I'd trade this for anything. We've both lived full lives, seen incredible things, and grown in ways we never expected. And now we get a second chance." Evelyn smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "A second chance," she echoed softly. "I like the sound of that." Despite their happiness, there were moments when the weight of their journey caught up with them. Evelyn sometimes woke in the middle of the night, haunted by visions of the rift and the fear of losing Liam again. On those nights, Liam would hold her close, whispering reassurances until her trembling subsided. In turn, Liam occasionally grew quiet, lost in thoughts of the decades he had spent waiting. When that happened, Evelyn would remind him of the promise they had made as teenagers, to find each other no matter what, and assure him that they had finally kept it. These moments of vulnerability only strengthened their bond. They understood now, more than ever, that love wasn't about perfection or ease. It was about choosing to stand by each other, even in the face of uncertainty and pain. By the time autumn arrived on Proxima Centauri, or what passed for autumn, given the planet's unique climate, Evelyn and Liam had become fixtures in the colony. Their story spread far beyond the settlement, inspiring others to confront their own fears and regrets. Some even credited their efforts with healing the rift, not just in time, but in the hearts of those who had suffered because of it. One evening, During a celebratory gathering to mark the colony's renewed prosperity, Evelyn stood before the crowd, holding Liam's hand. Her voice trembled slightly as she addressed the assembled colonists. "When I first came here," she began, "I was searching for someone I thought I'd lost forever. What I found instead was proof that love transcends time and space, no matter how far apart we are, no matter how many obstacles stand in our way. The connections we share are stronger than anything that tries to tear us apart." The crowd erupted into applause, but Evelyn barely heard it. Her focus was entirely on Liam, whose eyes glistened with unshed tears. As the cheers faded, he leaned in and kissed her gently, sealing their promise to face whatever the future held, together. The months that followed Evelyn and Liam's reunion were filled with a quiet, profound joy. Proxima Centauri had begun to thrive once more, its people united by the hope and resilience they saw in the elderly couple who had defied time itself. For Evelyn and Liam, however, the true miracle wasn't just their survival. It was the opportunity to rewrite their story. They decided to stay on the planet indefinitely, choosing to make it their home. The colony, though still recovering, offered them a fresh start, a chance to live out the future they had dreamed of as teenagers, but never thought possible. Together, they embraced this new chapter with a sense of wonder and gratitude, cherishing each day as if it were a gift. Evelyn continued her work on memory preservation, adapting her research to benefit the colonists. She developed portable devices that allowed people to record and share their experiences, ensuring that no one would lose touch with their loved ones again. Her innovations became a cornerstone of the colony's cultural revival, helping bridge gaps between generations and fostering a deeper sense of community. Liam, meanwhile, threw himself into rebuilding efforts, using his engineering skills to restore damaged infrastructure and improve living conditions. He worked closely with Kai, who had become like a surrogate grandson to him, teaching him everything he knew about mechanics and design. Their partnership brought laughter and camaraderie back to the settlement, reminding everyone that even in hardship, there was room for joy. Despite their busy schedules, Evelyn and Liam made time for themselves. They explored every corner of the planet, marveling at its alien landscapes and documenting their discoveries in journals they planned to publish someday. Each adventure deepened their connection, filling them with memories they vowed to cherish forever. One evening, as they sat on a hill overlooking the colony, Evelyn turned to Liam with a thoughtful expression. "Do you remember that night we promised to find each other again?" she asked softly. Liam smiled, his eyes twinkling. "How could I forget? It was the last thing I said to you before we parted ways. I've been thinking," Evelyn continued, "about how much that promise meant to us, and how much it means now. Maybe we should write our story down, not just for ourselves, but for others, so they'll know that love can endure anything, even 50 years apart." Liam nodded slowly, his gaze drifting to the horizon, where the sun dipped below jagged peaks. "I think that's a beautiful idea," he said. "We've spent so much of our lives searching for answers, to science, to life, to loss. But maybe the greatest answer of all is that love doesn't fade. It just waits." And so, Evelyn began writing. Every night after dinner, she sat at a desk in their modest home, penning chapters of their journey. She wrote about their teenage years, the stolen kisses behind the bleachers, the late-night stargazing sessions, the dreams they dared to dream. She wrote about their separation, the decades of silence that stretched between them like an endless void. And she wrote about their reunion, capturing every detail of their escape from the temporal rift and the moments that followed. Liam joined her whenever inspiration struck, adding his own perspective to the narrative. His voice brought balance to the story, offering insights Evelyn hadn't considered. Together, they crafted a memoir that was equal parts love letter and testament to human perseverance. They titled it Across the Stars, Love That Survived Time. When the book was finally complete, the couple shared it with the colony. At first, they intended only to distribute copies among friends and neighbors, but word spread quickly. Within weeks, their story reached neighboring settlements, then entire star systems. People across the galaxy were moved by Evelyn and Liam's tale, finding solace and inspiration in their unwavering devotion. Requests poured in for public readings, interviews, and even holographic adaptations of their memoir. Though initially reluctant, Evelyn and Liam agreed to share their story more widely, realizing its potential to bring hope to others facing impossible odds. Their message was simple yet powerful. Love transcends boundaries, whether of time, space, or circumstance. As years passed, Evelyn and Liam grew older, their bodies slowing down but their spirits remaining vibrant. They adopted a routine that balanced work, exploration, and reflection, always prioritizing each other above all else. Even as their hair turned fully gray and their steps became slower, their bond remained unshakable.